Garou, the hero hunter turned human monster. He is hands down one of my favourite antagonists of all time, a character who felt unfairly treated by the world, and so took up a one-man war against the heroes of society who he felt were unworthy of the praise and admiration they received. He saw a flawed world in front of him, one of unfairness and inequality, and so set out to change it by becoming an absolute evil that would bend the entire world to one knee, making everyone equal through fear. The beauty of Garou's character is the hypocrisy of it, how he genuinely does have a point about heroes and the unfairness of the world, but then goes and does the exact same thing he accuses others of, just in a different set of clothes. And only when faced with Saitama does he come to accept the truth of why he does the things that he does, and why he chose the lonely path of a monster. And so all of that is what we shall explore today. So if you find yourself entertained at any point during the video, then consider liking, subscribing and ringing that bell. Anyway, on with the video. Garou's childhood was not anything particularly unique, but it was the foundation of his ideology and why he went on to become the absolute evil. Like most children, he watched TV shows about heroes of justice vanquishing evil monsters. The catharsis of such shows is meant to come when justice triumphs over evil. We are meant to root for the good and root against the bad. Yet Garou didn't see it that way. As a kid, he rooted for the monsters. He sympathised with them and didn't want them to always lose. To Garou, it was unfair that they worked so hard every week and yet were defeated each and every time. Because justice always wins. No matter what the monsters do, they are always fated to lose, as evil never beats out justice. But if one side always wins, then it isn't fair. If the monsters never stand a chance, then the heroes are essentially cheating. To Garou, he rationalised this idea to the popular winning and the hated losing. That just because they were beloved, the heroes deserved to win, whereas the monsters, because they were ugly, lonely creatures, deserved to lose. And the reason he viewed these children's shows through this lens was because he was projecting his own feelings and frustrations onto them. When at school they played hero, it was expected for the kids playing the monsters to do just that, play along. The game, after all, involves the hero defeating the monster. The game, by that merit, is inherently unfair. Only those playing hero get to win, those playing monster always lose. If everyone took turns playing the game nicely, then there's not really much issue. But children are cruel, and they don't like to play fair. The popular kids are the heroes, and the unpopular kids, well, obviously they are the monsters. So Garou, of course, being the weak, unpopular kid he was chosen to play the monster every time. And the hero in this game was always a kid called Tachan. Tachan, of course, being the popular kid that everyone liked. As such, he got to be the hero. And as the hero, he got to beat up the monster, aka Garou. And when Garou protested, tried not to be kicked in the face by Tachan, he was the bad guy. He should have let himself be kicked, as that's how the game works. The other kids pinned him down under Tachan's command, and he was forced to play the monster. And as such, if every time he had to be the monster, and the monster just gets beaten up, all he's been doing every day is getting beaten up. He essentially is being bullied, but because it's all a game, because the guy bullying him is popular, then no one cares. He's not being bullied, he's just being a bad sport. When he tries to defend himself, he's in the wrong. Everyone turns on him, and he is then punished. Because he is popular, Tachan gets to be the hero, and because he's the hero, everyone takes his side. Garou's hatred for heroes was born here, because he associated heroes with Tachan. But it being about heroes and monsters wasn't the real issue. But Garou was a kid, so he just simplified it as such. In reality, he didn't care that Tachan was the hero, he didn't mind being the monster. What he really hated was the unfairness of it all, that no matter what role he picked or what role Tachan picked, he would lose and Tachan would win. The popular succeed, the weak are forgotten. He was forced to apologise when the one to start it was Tachan. That wasn't fair, it wasn't justice. But because Tachan was popular, his side became the right side and his word became justice. Because what Garou learnt as a kid, and the idea that moulded his future endeavours, is that justice is a farce. It is just an excuse for those who are called heroes to do whatever the hell they want. A hero as such will always be righteous, always on the side of justice, and the monster will always be in the wrong, because a story where the monster wins never existed in the first place. That is the cold, cruel truth of this unfair world, and so the only way for a monster to win is for the world to be changed, for a new story to be written. which is why Garou is so far the most effective antagonist in the series, because he is so far the only antagonist to interact with the meta of the story in a similar way to Saitama. Saitama being the hero of justice who always wins no matter what, and Garou seeking to be the one to finally beat the narrative and become the monster that wins. Saitama is the very thing Garou hates, a hero that always wins, and so his end goal is to essentially overcome Saitama's gag and become a monster so strong even a hero that always wins cannot hope to defeat him. I mean, his first line in the series is about how he's the disaster level god threat Lady Shibaba predicted. His goal is to become the endgame threat of the series. His first act in the story is an indiscriminate slaughter. Heroes and villains alike fell to his hands, because what he wants to become is something fair. He wants to enforce evil equally. However, even if he says this and does believe it, his immediate hatred of course is directed at the embodiment of unfairness in front of him, the Hero Association, and so he begins the hero hunts, almost like an inverse of the hero defeating a new monster every week. Garou the human monster defeats heroes one after another. But it's obvious that his own hatred for the Hero Association is just as much the reason for these hunts as his goal of changing the world. I mean, when he fights Genos, he becomes very angry. Angry at Genos for his confidence in the face of danger, and his good looks. Basically hates how Genos embodies a traditional hero, good looking and fearless. This fight with Genos though, almost ends up being his undoing, as Bang and Bomb join the fight, with Bang beating up Garou with a surprise attack and then having his brother jump Garou alongside him. It's a surprise attack, it's ganging up, it isn't fair one bit. It reflects how he was ganged up on by his classmates as a kid, hence why we see Bang and Bomb drawn as the same black figures we see in Garou's flashback. Justice and evil to Garou are nebulous concepts. All that matters is the majority wants him dead, and that's unfair. He wants to show the strong the strength of the weak, wants to deny their values of good and evil and make them understand that in the end all they are doing is bullying the weak. To Garou the whole world has become the same faceless bullies. And given it was his master to attack him here, you can kinda see why Garou continues to believe this. Bang was his master and teacher, the one to teach him martial arts. They had a relationship, but the moment he became a monster, his master tries to take him down, not with fair old martial arts, but with surprise attacks and jumpings. The moment it becomes a hero's justice versus a monster's evil, it becomes unfair. However, before he is taken down, Garou is rescued by the Monster Association, an organisation which seeks to wipe out the Hero Association and create a world of monsters. They want him to join since on paper they seem to share a goal, but first give him a task. Kill 100 humans. Doing so will prove he is a monster. But Garou questions why this would make him a monster. His own image of a monster isn't of a mass murdering danger to society, but of a being that brings fear and doesn't belong. Garou, despite being pro-monster, doesn't really understand what a monster is even about. The ideal image of a monster in his head doesn't match with reality. As well, his perfect monster, one that doesn't lose, is just a fantasy. It is soon after that Garou meets Busaiku, a kid being bullied in a park. Now rather obviously this kid here is a reflection of Garou's own childhood self. He saves the kid from these bullies, saying another ugly kid always the target of bullies, reinforcing his views on unfairness and how once again the popular good looking are punching down on those lacking in looks. And one very key point to add is that Busaiku is a big fan of heroes, wanting to grow up to be one himself, and so how Garou affects this kid's perception of heroes is very important when assessing Garou's own arc. It is also around this time Garou first meets Saitama, getting one-punched for dying and dashing. An event that leads him to being deemed as a human by the Monster Association, saving kids and getting beaten up by low-level heroes. As far as they are concerned, he is no monster, as he still has his human values. To a monster, the value of being a monster is that they have detached themselves from humanity, but Garou has done no such thing. As Garou says, he doesn't believe there is a strict definition of a monster, because again he doesn't really understand what it means to be a monster, because the things he admires about monsters could be applied to any underdogs. The only reason it is monsters he cares about is because they are the ones who fight the heroes. When it comes to the actual values monsters embody, he just cannot relate, nor will he ever attain them. And so despite being a so-called monster, he fights the Monster Association members, but ends up beaten. First beaten by a hero, now by monsters. The only constant to Garou is losing, but losing is what fuels Garou to get stronger. Now Garou may call himself a monster, but as we just discussed, he doesn't align with them, and so he goes to save Busaiku by himself, and then, when fighting Psychos, only loses because he is fazed by the suggestion that Busaiku will be killed. He essentially acts as a hero to Busaiku, maybe because he wishes he had a hero come along and save him as a kid. The point is, Garou does show some heroics, if only a little. Now next up fight-wise for Garou is his showdown with Super Alloy Darkshine, which I'd argue is his second most important fight in the series. Darkshine at first overwhelms Garou, calling him lucky for surviving this long. He calls Garou's hero hunts just playing monster. But to Garou, they are all playing hero. If they do the right thing, then they can do whatever they want. They can engage in violence without regret and call it justice. The mass media will support whatever they do and herald them as heroes, because whatever they do will be deemed justice. It's once again his anger towards the majority dictating what is right and not letting the minority even speak up. This hero is forcing his own ideals of justice onto Garou, beating him down in the name of justice. Not letting Garou the minority speak up, just crushing him as justice does to the weak. This is the exact paradigm Garou wishes to change, and so fueled by his anger, he grows even stronger, determined to crush that justice. And then he bullies Darkshine, a one-sided onslaught. Darkshine, you see, wanted a fight that would make him feel good about himself. He never wanted the chance of losing, didn't want to put himself into a fight he may not win. He, in other words, wanted to beat down on the weak to make himself feel better. Darkshine embodies the hero's mindset that Garou hates. Darkshine wasn't fighting to help others, he was fighting to make himself feel better. It was the admiration that made him be a hero. He didn't have a true heart of justice. He was just playing hero. Garou makes Darkshine face this truth, makes Darkshine question if the hero system really is flawed. Now obviously Darkshine isn't anywhere near as selfish and bad as this, and as we see later in this story, he very much does have a true hero spirit, but that in itself is also the point, as what Garou thinks a hero should be, much like what he thinks a monster should be, are not realistic. They are a fantasy, the kind of thing a child would believe in. And also all the things he is criticising Darkshine for here, in a way, isn't this also true for Garou too? Isn't he himself being a hypocrite? He's always fighting to make himself feel better about himself. He's fighting because he hates unfairness, he wants to be strong enough to be treated fairly. He beats down on the weak to make himself feel better, to show that the underdog can win, even though in those fights, he was no longer the underdog, he was just playing the monster. And deep down he knows this. As he says, he always knew the standpoints of heroes and monsters. He questions why he is doing this, and concludes it simply because he hates people that create unfairness. He admits he is just a human, but does he really want to die here? Just as that, as just a human, forgotten about while the heroic S-Class who defeated the Evil Monster Association are forgotten. And this is when he becomes the ominous future, the vision of a perfect monster he always aspired to be. He will stand as an absolute fairness to all. Be it hero or monster, he will crush them all. He will serve as the ultimate fear for all, because neither the heroes nor monsters measure up to his ideal image of them, and he makes sure Busaiku is there to witness it all. He needs to prove to this child that his ideals and his goals are the correct path. He needs to stand in for his own child's self to acknowledge the path he's taken and the world he will create. Because if an ugly bullied kid can't see the merit in what he is doing, then he would have failed in his goal. And so he must show to his child self that these popular and entitled heroes can be beaten, that monsters can win, that his efforts will pay off, and that the heroes won't succeed just because they are called justice. He systematically destroys each of the heroes, exposing them for the selfish and unheroic people they truly are. And my mask represents the image of heroes as beautiful and perfect people that should be revered. He is the same as Tachan, good looking and popular. So of course, always right, always just. As Garou says, does a hero have to be beautiful? Is being a hero based on such superficial aspects? And goes on to say that isn't that just proof of my mask and heroes as a whole are just narcissists? Atomic Samurai pleads for Garou not to fight him, nor his disciples, because they are hurt and unarmed. This shows to Garou that a hero will not risk their own lives to save others if they themselves are in an unfavourable position, that they can be forgiven for not trying when they could, just because it's a little harder and more risky for them. It's fair for heroes to finish off the weak because it's in the name of justice, but when a monster tries to do the same to them, suddenly it's unfair. Pig God represents the greed of heroes. As Garou says, under the name of heroism, he consumes twice as much as others. In other words, just because he is a hero, because he calls himself one, he is entitled to more than the average person. While the weak suffer, he gets to indulge in cardinal desires. that just because he's a hero, he is let off with getting more than the people he saves. Zombie Man, due to his regeneration, can never die. In Garou's eyes, he can never even risk his life because he has unlimited lives. He doesn't have to worry because he himself will be fine no matter what. Even if he fails, there's no lasting consequences to him as a person. Flashy Flash is the self-importance of a hero, calling himself the main character as he shows up. His ego and pride is not befitting of Garou's own image of a hero. Darkshine spouts how he will fight risking his life as if that's a big deal, when as Garou puts it, anyone can do that. That is what Garou considers the most basic of prerequisites of being a hero, and the fact he only now is doing it is just more evidence to Garou of how even Darkshine, one of the association's best, wasn't even doing the bare basics of what it means to be a hero. At the end of the day, in Garou's eyes, the heroes are just people playing hero. It's just a game to them. They are hypocrites in his eyes, speaking of justice yet being unjust in his eyes. They are just bullies. He thinks absolute evil should exist, that it must, but that the hypocrisy of the heroes is what crushes it before it can grow. And that's the root of why he became a monster, became the absolute evil, because he sees them as unfair, as not just, as not heroes. In his mind they have failed to bring about peace as a hero should, and so he will show them their failings. If they are heroes, then he must become a monster, because what is a hero's job? To defeat the monsters. So if he becomes a monster they couldn't beat, then he'd be calling them in no uncertain words that they are a failure of a hero. He wishes to expose their narcissism, to show they aren't fighting for any more reason than to be called heroes. They are in a way all talk, something highlighted by how instead of trying to save Busaiku, Zombie Man instead uses words. He tries to talk down Garou, not stop him with actions. As Garou says, he is cowardly. As soon as he can't win, he just gives up. It's just an easy job like that, where if you can't do it, then you can just run your mouth for a bit and be forgiven for failing. A bit hypocritical for the superhuman S-Class who see themselves as above others. It's really hammered home at the end of the fight, when Child Emperor says it's their job as superiors to deal with Garou, as they do see themselves as above everyone else. As the S-Class try to put him down to enact justice, he defeats them all with ease. He declares himself disaster level god, and claims he will crush something as unreliable as God as well. But by doing so he has in a way become the very thing he hates. He has become unfairness incarnate, just a powerful bully beating down on those weaker than him. He is basically enacting his own justice because he is stronger. Without knowing it, he has just become what he hates. Garou in essence seeks validation for his beliefs to be proven correct. That is why he deliberately does not kill any of the S-Class when he easily could have, or why he announces he will kill Busaiku. He is testing them. As he says, if heroes have a reason for existing, now's the time to show me. It's not just about destroying the unfairness they represent, but also about proving he was right. He wants to give them the chance to act as true heroes and then watch them fail, solidifying his belief as the truth without doubt. Because a hero always wins, a hero always saves the day. They don't use their inability as an excuse. They aren't cowards, and as such none of the people lying defeated across the battlefield as Garou approaches Busaiku are fit to be called heroes. He gives them one last chance to prove there is a hero among them. Well, actually he gives them more than one chance. He over and over tells them to stand up and fight. He's desperate for one of them to get back up. However, to his surprise, the person that steps up is not one of the S-Class. They don't see themselves as above others, and they aren't even here as a hero. They are just here as a neighbour complaining about the noise. This is where Saitama appears, the man who crushed Garou's views underfoot, a true absolute even greater than his so-called absolute evil. Saitama is unlike the other heroes. He doesn't see himself as superior, he doesn't take pride in being a hero, isn't doing it for glory or popularity. He wasn't fighting Garou as a hero at all, he just wanted to fight someone strong. He didn't want to punish Garou for almost killing the other heroes, he just didn't want it to escalate any further. He is a factor Garou never even considered. When the fight starts, what does Saitama say? Who are you and what are you doing? It's a very simple question, but it's one the S-Class never asked. Saitama, after all, isn't here on some mission to kill Garou, so he doesn't come in with some predetermined view of justice he is going to lay out. As far as he is concerned, Garou is just a guy playing monster, in the exact same way that Garou sees the S-Class as people just playing hero. And this is where the hypocrisy of Garou's character comes into play, as in the same way that the S-Class didn't get Garou's motivation, with Zombie Man boiling it down to just a simple hate for heroes, Garou himself doesn't get Saitama. When Saitama calls Garou's monster cosplay a hobby, Garou says he gets what he means, but that he is saying their fight is inevitable. Or when Saitama says he isn't a monster, he interprets it as Saitama trying to reach out to his humanity in a last-ditch attempt to stop him. But as we know, he is missing the point completely. Even if he saw the S-Class, as flawed as they are, at least acted somewhat like a hero. They at least played along with the script. But Saitama isn't like that. Saitama's reason to fight Garou isn't because of justice, it's not to avenge his fellow heroes. He fights for nothing but his selfish desire to have a challenge. A fun little thing to note is how Garou says after punching Saitama for the first time, he won't be working as a hero ever again, implying he didn't intend to kill him, once again showing the cracks in Garou's facade. Hammered even harder home when Saitama says this is the first time a monster has gone easy on me, because to Saitama, Garou isn't a monster. No more than that, he is a pretty sweet guy. And so as the fight continues, as Garou thinks about how Saitama is the Hero Association's secret weapon, and about how all he has to do is defeat this last hero, all Saitama is thinking about is how far he can push Garou, how much fun he can have in this fight. Both are playing their own games in a way, but only one is having fun. Garou's thoughts are all over the world as the absolute evil, to be a symbol of fear that unites the earth as one. But then Saitama, well, he literally rips up the earth and flips it over. As playing a game with Saitama isn't fair, he begins to embody the very idea of unfairness in Garou's mind. He in Garou's mind becomes a bully. As well, why did Garou do all this to begin with? Because he didn't like how the heroes bullied the monsters. He didn't like how the weak were oppressed. After all, martial arts in essence are a tool for the weak to overcome the strong. Possibly why Garou learnt them to begin with. Garou wanted to create a peaceful world, and what's one of the first things he says this new world will eliminate? Bullying. As we know, at the root of it, his hatred for heroes is just his hatred for bullies, for being treated unfairly, and Saitama becomes the embodiment of that. And well, what does Saitama say to him? Fighting with you isn't fun. That's when Garou understands what Saitama's been saying this whole fight. This really is just one big game. Justice and evil are decided by others, both are unfair. What Saitama is to Garou right now is just what Garou was to the S-Class, a bully. He can spout all of the philosophy and evil monologues he wants, but at the end of the day, Garou is just a guy playing monster. To Saitama, he is no monster, not even a real threat, just a noisy neighbour. Because as Saitama said, it's determination that finishes a match. He just wasn't serious. If he really wanted to change the world, then he shouldn't have become the absolute evil. And what more, he got enraged by Saitama because, as he says, I thought I was fighting a hero, but this guy wasn't anything like a hero. And like that, his true feelings are revealed, with Saitama literally breaking open his hard exterior, his monster facade, to reveal his true human feelings. As much like how he has the image of a perfect monster in his head, he also has an image of a hero in his heart. As Saitama says, he really wanted to be a hero, and only then do we see Garou's eyes, the window to his soul. He wanted to become a hero, but he compromised and decided to be a monster. He just took the easy route, as a monster's role is much easier than a hero's, perfect for someone with no self-confidence like Garou, who didn't even have the resolve to step up and become a hero. Instead of becoming the ideal hero he saw in his mind, he chose to become a monster instead. Why? Because a hero has to get serious. They have to have the determination to save the world. Yet all a monster has to do is exist. Be the strongest and become a common enemy. He wouldn't need to try. Yet he has the gall to criticise the S-Class for failing to become his ideal hero, when he himself was too much of a coward to even try. Saitama is a hero for a hobby. He grew up idolising heroes in the same way Garou idolised them. But the difference is clear. One of them pursued their dream even if it was just a hobby, and the other took the easy way out. Sure, it's just a hobby to him, and he may not act like a hero in a lot of ways, but at least he's doing it, not resorting to becoming something as half-assed as the absolute evil. As Saitama says, your compromised monster hobby versus my serious hero hobby. Even if that's all I had, I still wouldn't lose. And then what does he do? He asks what he will do next. After lowering the hurdle right before the goal, what will Garou do next time? And well, Garou doesn't know. And that there says it all. It may be a hobby, but Saitama knows what he wants to do. and when Garou doesn't. His attempt at something was half-assed from the start, and that's why he lost. He was simply lashing out at the world. He hated how unfair the world was, but instead of trying to change that by stopping bullying at its roots, he instead wanted to become an even bigger bully, and force everyone to be equal by becoming an unfair force just like the justice he hates. Maybe he just couldn't see someone like himself becoming a hero. Maybe he was scared of the idea. Whatever the case, he buried that true dream of his deep down and became a monster instead. However, before he can come to any further conclusions, the S-Class gather and demand an execution. Because although Garou was flawed in a lot of ways, and many of his beliefs were both hypocritical and biased, some things do reign true. Because it's in the name of justice, these heroes can execute Garou here and now and be called not murderers, but be praised as heroes. And this is one of the best moments in the entire series for showing why Saitama is in a way the truest definition of a hero. Even if he doesn't conform to what Garou, the Hero Association, or society as a whole deem as the model hero. The S-Class demand he be killed before he regains his strength. They seek to impose their biased judgment on him. We even get the beforehand mentioned line from Child Emperor, "We have the obligation as the superiors to finish him off," which Saitama obviously dismisses. In his mind, this is just a little squabble, just some roughhousing. Garou was just playing around, never intending to kill anyone, so why should this escalate to murder? Then Silverfang joins in, beating up Garou but with a certain softness, because he doesn't want to hurt his actual disciple. And all Garou can do is sit there while Saitama banging on my mask or argue about how to deal with this human monster, about what justice to enact. And he does nothing. He has nothing to say, because with his half-assed dream crushed, he has nothing left. He knows he cannot become a hero now, knows his true dream will never come to pass, and so he just lays over and accepts the unfair justice that is about to be dealt to him. All until the very kid he was trying to kill steps in. A child who mimics the words of Garou, calling them bullies. Yet unlike Garou, he is brave enough to point out what a real hero is. And to him it is Garou. Garou's true dream of being a hero. Maybe it wasn't as out of reach as he thought. Maybe he could start over again. Maybe he could do something. And so as Busaku calls him a hero, a little life entered his eyes. And My Mask the hero pushes down the child, the person they were trying to protect. Out of context, it's not clear who is good and who is bad, and that's the point of this scene. It makes us question what it means to be a hero. It makes us sympathise with Garou, because it makes us ask why these people here have the authority to execute justice as they see fit. Saitama doesn't fit the definition of a hero. He is not Garou's ideal hero, but he did save the day. Not by beating Garou, but by proving to him he was no monster. Unlike the S-Class, he didn't pursue an unfair execution, but saw the situation for what it really was. The man with unrivaled strength in the end won, not because of said strength, but because of some simple observations, just a couple of words. And yet he is not acknowledged as the hero of the day, not celebrated for his choice to spare Garou. He is treated as Garou would put it, unfairly. But a hero doesn't need recognition, they aren't superiors and they aren't narcissists. As Saitama showed back during the deep-seeking fight, or after the meteor, heroes don't need to be praised or celebrated. Garou could be like this too, in fact he may go on to be, but he didn't before, because he simply wanted the attention. He wanted to be noticed, not overlooked like he had been as a child. But now having finally gotten the acknowledgement he wanted from a child who also was the victim of bullying, not as a monster, but as a hero, that gave him the motivation to keep living. And so he chose to live and he fled. And although we've not seen much of him since, he seems to be now living an honest life and with a hero's heart. So in conclusion, what was Garou all about? In short, he was a kid who was bullied. He felt the way he was treated was unfair and wanted to change that, not just for himself, but for all the bullied kids of the world. Deep down he wanted to be a hero, but he lacked the determination for it, and took the easy way out. He blamed the heroes that already existed, hating them for not living up to the image of a hero in his heart. The kind of hero he wanted to come and save him as a kid. The hero he wanted to become. And so he conflated the unfair world and these not so perfect heroes together, coming to conclude that by crushing these heroes and exposing them as fakes, he can create a fairer world. And to this end, he set out to become the absolute evil. A monster that would, through fear, make a fair world, one where corrupt heroes cannot execute justice on the weak. But the thing about monsters is they will always lose to the hero, and so he lost to the strongest hero at the last hurdle. However, he never was a true monster, and so unlike those monsters killed every week by Justice Man, he got to walk away and got a second chance. The thing that makes Garou so captivating to me is how, although flawed in many ways, his philosophy and motive make sense. They aren't born out of ambition or drive, but out of the simple and relatable feeling of being pushed down by the world. He isn't secretly a good guy or a hero underneath. He is a complex and flawed individual who took the wrong path for the right reasons, and so became a dangerous but not irredeemable individual. And now, after finally getting the acknowledgement he wanted, that at his core, his goal wasn't wrong, he can now change and inspire to this time do better.